Hey guys, 2 p.m. on Monday the 15th. I was sent a video by my Aunt Julie in Iowa this past weekend about crypto and specifically, interesting video on cryptocurrency and Bitcoin specifically from the perspective of a libertarian. And so I thought I'd make a video on crypto, firstly, as an investment vehicle, secondly, as a currency, and tertiarily as from the libertarian perspective, which is kind of linked to crypto as a currency. And before I launch into this, I am speaking completely outside of my area of expertise. These are the opinions of someone who has researched this enough to stay relevant as a financial professional, but not so much as I am a cryptocurrency specialist in any sense of the matter. So with that said, firstly, let's talk about cryptocurrency, the investment. It is a wildly volatile investment. It hit a high of about $18,000 US in 2017, and then fell 83% to give or take $3,000. And it's currently trading at about 56,000 or something like that. It's hit 60,000 US this year. Wildly volatile. And anyone who is even remotely early on it has done fabulously well. I don't believe you can hold it in an RRSP or a TFSA or anything like that. And so it would be difficult for anyone who doesn't have a pretty big portfolio to hold it, just because 60 grand US is, that's a lot of money. I think that's about 80 grand in Canadian dollars. And if you have, a small chunk of your portfolio is $80,000, then, you're probably doing pretty well. So it should be thought of from an investment perspective as an alternative asset that is wildly volatile. You might lose your shirt on it, but you might do really well on it. That's crypto as an investment. Crypto is a currency. So, and this is, so the libertarian perspective is the belief that cryptocurrency will eventually supplant USD. And the reason for this is because, number one, it's not regulated or controlled by government or banks or central banks. It basically cuts the authority figures out of financial transactions, which is really attractive from the libertarian perspective. And also that it hedges against inflation, which is caused by excessive government printing of money. The ultimate, it all comes down to the fact that the belief that USD and Canadian dollars are a manipulated currency. It's a manipulated asset in as much as central banks have the ability to print more money or remove money from the supply. And that is true. Both USD and Canadian dollars are manipulated currencies. The thing is, they are manipulated in such a way, the reason why they are manipulated is to maintain their stability. So if you work a job that pays you $40,000 a year, your $40,000 will be able to buy you roughly the same amount of stuff as it did last year. That's really important in a developed country. A stable currency is really important to develop as a developed country. So let's look at Bitcoin, where we hit 18,000, then 3,000, then 60,000. Imagine you are a lender and you lent out one Bitcoin to somebody in 2017 when Bitcoin was worth $18,000. And that one Bitcoin was paid back to you a few months later when Bitcoin was worth about $3,000. You've effectively lost $15,000 on this transaction, in spite of the fact that it's just one Bitcoin. Bitcoin has gone from being able to afford a Honda Civic down to a used Honda Civic. It's maybe 10 years old and kind of rough around the edges, all the way up to being able to afford like a, I don't know, BMW convertible or whatever people are buying nowadays, or Tesla. The fact that it's so wildly volatile means that it's very difficult for it to actually take the form of a legitimate currency. The other factor that gets in the way of it being a currency is the transaction fees. So right now, the technology is amazing, and in order for the technology to work, there is a transaction fee that averages about $10 per transaction. It can be a little bit more if the transaction is a little bit more complicated. But generally speaking, it costs about $10. That $10 goes to the Bitcoin miners. The miners are basically the people whose computers are processing all of these transactions. If you attempt at any point to lower that transaction fee, you'll wind up with fewer people mining crypto, which basically undermines the utilitarianism, or it undermines Bitcoin's effectiveness. If you can't transact for less than $10 per transaction, like, can you imagine going to the store to buy a bag of chips or something like that and being charged a $10 transaction fee to do that? Even if you go to the grocery store and you buy $100 worth of groceries, you're paying a 10%, on average, a 10% fee in order to buy your groceries. That's just too much. And it's difficult to ever imagine that falling. The sheer processor capacity that Bitcoin demands will mean that it will most likely always be expensive. So, and the current processing, in spite of the fact that it uses all of this processing capacity, Bitcoin is currently able to process about 5 transactions per second, whereas I'm looking it up right here, Visa is able to process about 24,000 transactions per second. So crypto as an investment is different from crypto as a currency. It's going to be very difficult to imagine at least Bitcoin ever being a currency. And it's currently being used as an investment. You don't buy crypto to transact with it. You buy it to hold, or hodl, as the Bitcoiners call it. It would currently be similar to if we were allowed to pay for things with company stock. That just doesn't really work. Doesn't really make sense. Anyway, I get it, and there may one day be something that works to this extent, but I don't think it's Bitcoin. Again, I'm not an expert. Keep that in mind.